a company called Cognos, if you guys are familiar with the business analytics space. And he challenged me with this concept. And it sort of like stuck with me in like a really, really big way, which is, can you close this deal in one call? And we all know that's literally impossible. Like, literally impossible. But the exercise of it was actually probably the most interesting thing that I went through, which is, how do you ask the right questions at the right time, in the right order, to sort of clean out the right responses, to move the conversation forward, such that at the end of the call, you can just spit it all back to them. And I really, really think this is probably one of the most interesting exercises to go through, is if you had to jump on a phone or meet with someone for the first time, can I close this call in one call with my company? And so, in order to do this, I created this concept, and by the way, my background is computer science, so I'm not really like, you know, this overly awesome sales guy like all the people in this room, and gals for that matter. I'm an engineer. And so I came up with this concept that helped me guide through this process, and this is a really geeky concept. But I'm happy to draw it out. Any computer science guys here, or double E folks? All right, so this is new territory. Oh, right here. All right. So this is some new territory, and so I'm gonna have to geek out for a second. So there's this. We all use Google and this concept called search, and we're all pretty familiar with it. It's based off of different notions of trees and how you have these nodes and page links pointing everywhere. But there's this concept. It's called a k-ary tree. You know, for simplistic terms, I'm going to call it a binary tree. And what this means is that for every question that you ask, there are probably 10 million other answers that can come up, and then there's more questions that come up with that, and there's more questions that come up with that. And so before I start a company, even before I go into an investor meeting or before I go into a prospect meeting, I map out the entire conversation in my head. How is this going to go? And it sounds ridiculous. Probably it's like, wow, that's going to like go every number of directions. And you guys know what I'm talking about, because you go on these calls and they say, and then they say this, and then they say this, of which Ben provided some really, some basic sort of questions that sort of come up very, very consistently. But in order to be successful in sort of negotiating, you really have to map out the entire conversation before you jump in. And I think like if you don't do that, and you don't understand what are the right questions to ask first and what's the right question to go second, you're always going to feel like you're surprised in the process. What's the reason why you'd say no? And so think about the tree of questions that you'd ask and the answers that come out, and map it all in your head before a call. So Ben talked about this, and I fundamentally believe in this, is that when you think you're talking to a decision maker, you're really not talking to a decision maker. No one makes a decision in a vacuum, and if you think that they do, you're clearly wrong. I know even when I talk to a partner at a venture firm, or if I'm talking to a prospect or a VP of sales or a CEO, there's still a process of which they want to get buy-in from more people, they want to talk to other people. So I usually ask questions like, tell me about the process you go through to make this decision. Who do you talk to? Who else is involved? And some people find that process a little too direct, but actually, it's actually a very, very appropriate question to ask any specific prospect is, walk me through this, how this deal would go through. If you were interested in our product and we met your goals, what's the process of going through this? It's no different than if I was raising money and I'm talking to a partner and saying, tell me how this process goes. How are decisions being made? And I know that even though this person has the ability to write a $10 million check, they're going through their own background process of like, well, you know, I need to talk to this other guy, well, and you know exactly what he's going to go through. And usually I can map that out in terms of what I need to go through to move this deal forward. So I'm going to give some very, very basic tactical tips. I don't know if you're going to find it useful or not, but these are